episode of the Its Canon Podcast. I hope everyone had a awesome, safe, happy Christmas, holidays, what have you, whatever you celebrate. I hope you celebrate it safe, well, with loved ones if humanly possible. This is the Its Canon Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things everything. We talk about all things comic books, all things video games, all things toys, all things books, all things movies, all things Lego, all things Star Wars, all things Mandalorian, anything and everything, and the best part of it all is that it's all in canon. This week, I am taking hosting duties solo, and it's just me. As always, I'm Boris. Phil and Tyler are getting the day off, but really, every sitcom has that one episode when they gotta, reach to the vault and they come up with a compilation episode, and that's exactly what this episode is going to be. Today, we wanted to still release something to you, so we are going into the vault, and we have an awesomely fun episode for you, and this episode is actually from August the 8th, 2016, so this is the first incarnation of the Its Canon Podcast, and it was Tyler and I chatting all things The Killing Joke animated movie. So I had the opportunity to watch The Killing Joke in a theater. Remember those dank and moist theaters? Man, it feels like it's been forever. But yeah, I was able to watch The Killing Joke in theater. Tyler watched it on his own. And then we had a chat about, what worked and what really didn't work, and what really didn't work and almost offended people and pretty much offended us. But it's always fun, and listening back to this was interesting. It's crazy to listen to a show that happened 4 or 5 years ago. Sometimes I listen to the older shows because I'm trying to see what I can use all of that old content for. But we're gonna from time to time we're gonna release one of these From the Vault episodes, and I think that this is a perfect time to do so. I essentially left this episode as is. I did remaster it, ran it through compressor, tried to make the sound quality a little better, but Skype was not the same back then, and that's what we used to communicate. So I tried my best with the sound quality, and I hope that everyone enjoys the episode from August the 8th, 2016. Boris and Tyler talk all things Batman Killing Joke, the animated movie. Enjoy! Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of the Its Canon Podcast.
So special.
So special. Super special. Uber special. I was going to say a joke, and it was very tasteless, so I'm not going to.
Glad you didn't.
I'll tell you later.
All right. I'll tell you later.
I'll tell you later.
I'll tell you later.
You're listening to the Its Canon Podcast. If you just, if you're still listening, that is. That intro didn't annoy you. And as always, I'm your host, Boris, and Tyler somewhere.
I'm somewhere.
Somewhere.
Hidden amongst the mists of time and space.
Yep. Well, this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is a special episode of the Its Canon Podcast, because in this episode we are going to talk all things Batman the Killing Joke.
Just one topic,
but there was enough for us to talk about just this one topic, in what's becoming not as polarizing as the Suicide Squad, but polarizing in its own sense.
Which is weird, because I would argue this is more worthy of discussion than the Suicide Squad.
100%. 100%. So for those of you who are wondering, what the hell is the Killing Joke? Number one, you've been living under a rock. Because, let's face it, The Killing Joke is maybe the most iconic comic book Batman story for sure,
Yes.
but maybe comic book.
I don't know about that one.
I'm gonna say it.
I think if you were to do like top 10,
No, this one would be in a lot of top lists. Like, it's impossible to say that there's one, but this one's huge. This one really defined a lot of things in the Batman verse. It was originally written by Alan Moore with illustrations by Brian Boland. It was released in 1988, March of 1988, and it was a 47-page special.
yeah,
And yeah, a lot from this book really made it not only into canon for Batman, but really defined how characters can be written in general in comic books, specifically superhero books.
yeah,
For those of you who don't know what the major plot is, it's basically Joker has devised his ultimate plan to drive people insane, specifically Jim Gordon, and because he knows that to get Batman, he can terrorize the people around him, and he'll always show up. But what this book is mainly known for is the shooting of Barbara Gordon, which eventually paralyzes her, and then she becomes Oracle down the road, yada, yada, yada.
yeah, just yada 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 over a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, for good reason,
Yeah,
But yeah, this book, in my opinion, it is. For myself, it is the most iconic Batman book, and really, it just for such a short book, it really did everything. And anything you know about Batman between this and The Dark Knight Returns, and anything Miller did, it really defined what Batman is today. And this came out like a year before Michael Keaton 1989 Batman. So this is again like on the road to making Batman dark and brooding and whatnot.
mm-hmm.
You've read this, right?
I have read this.
Yeah. So last year, it was announced that The Killing Joke would be made into a DC animated movie. That gained a lot of attention, not only because it is such an iconic book, but because it was going to feature the voices of Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as the Joker, which, for those of you who don't know, those are the original voices from Batman the Animated Series, which, again, is very, very high on many people's lists in terms of Batman media.
Yeah.
The other reason why The Killing Joke got a lot of attention was because it was going to be rated R. An animated Batman movie being rated R, yes, they did it. And it's actually interesting, and that's something that I do want to talk about when we start talking about the movie itself. So I think, is there anything you want to add about the book before we move on?
About the book?
Yes.
No. I think everything to add about the book is better coming up as we go.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing really. Yeah, it is definitely part of the foundation of what is Batman and the Joker, and it does a lot to establish who these characters are.
Yep. All right, so we'll jump into the movie. So I saw the movie in a theatrical screening a few weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks on Monday. And right away, as I was watching the movie, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a very interesting discussion with Tyler. Because, after a year and a half of working together on Comics I Read and the Its Canon Podcast, we kind of know each other's tastes for the most part. And I knew it was going to lead to a lot of very good discussions.
Yes.
So the next day, I'm like, Tyler, you need to watch this. Watch
Yep.
it.
So I did.
Yeah. And we've been planning on recording this special for a while. Again, I don't know how long it's going to run. It really doesn't matter. It can be, half an hour, however long. We're just going to have a good old discussion on The Killing Joke. So for those of you who listened to episode 38 38 or 39 or whatever episode it is of the Its Canon Podcast, where we actually talked a little bit about the Killing Joke, we had mentioned that there's a review on the website. So if you haven't read the review, you should read the review. And overall, I think that, just gonna say it, it's a good movie that you should watch. However, you might need to alter your expectations just a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What's up?
Oh, I still have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah. Oh no, I do too. I have very mixed feelings about it.
Yeah.
So basically, the important thing here, and the reason why I always say the page count, isn't because trying to be fancy. It's really because you have to understand that having a 47, 48 page comic book turned into a movie was going to be very difficult. So obviously, Brian Azzarello, as the writer, added a little more into the story. I thought they were going to add more overall into the retelling of the Killing Joke, but they opted to add a whole sort of chapter act, I would say, to the entire story that happened prior to the Killing Joke. And the focus of that was Barbara Gordon, and mainly Batgirl, and her sort of relationship with Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was really the focus of that. And it made for many, many awkward situations.
Yeah.
You're still thinking there.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's really difficult to pull apart. There's a lot of pieces in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of pieces.
Yep.
And it's difficult to disentangle a lot of them.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the whole first act become a Batgirl was one of the major complaints about the actual graphic novel was the portrayal of Barbara Gordon Batgirl. A lot of people didn't like the way that she was written. She was basically used as a pawn in Joker's greater scheme.
And that's always been a problem with the Killing Joke plot.
Yes.
And since then, a lot of people who are involved in it have basically come out and either said, like, look, it was a product of the 80s.
Yep.
And that doesn't make it good, but that makes it, like...
You have to understand the times.
Yeah, context is important.
Yeah, exactly.
And others, and Moore himself has said that even for the 80s, they probably went too far.
Yeah. Alan Moore's the first person in an interview from 2006. He basically said how he's borderline embarrassed of that story. He hasn't
said borderline. He says he's embarrassed and it was a mistake.
It was a mistake. Not only like writing it, he didn't like the story. He thought that it was crazy, like delving so deep into the psyches of these characters.
Yeah.
But he was also disgusted at his actual portrayal of Batgirl, Barbara Gordon.
To add on, a lot of observers, including people who worked with Moore at the time, suggest that part of this was he was just exhausted because he had just finished Watchmen and he had basically been... Watchmen was full of him fighting with DC executives.
Yeah.
And he basically owed them this now, and it might even be why it's so short.
Mm-hmm.
Was he just might want to get it done?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No. So. Yeah, so that's a very important point to make. So when they added this whole first act, I was expecting, a cool Batgirl story, especially when you saw what they were doing. And it was narrated by Batgirl. She was basically the star of this entire first half. And while she was portrayed at times of being this kick-ass, heroine as Batgirl, I found that her portrayal as Barbara Gordon was really weak. Because at the end of the day, she was always lusting after this guy. Or, there was something hormonally wrong with her, or this and that. I just found that her actual portrayal as Batgirl was well done. But Barbara Gordon was borderline worse than the original graphic novel. And it really, for lack of a better word, objectified her.
Yeah, I think you hit it exactly right. And one of the common criticisms has been that, like, look, you're doing an adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want an adaptation this long, you have to change stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to change stuff, it really feels like they changed the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
And they adapted a lot of the wrong stuff that doesn't fix it super well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the parts of it is, like, you start off with this interesting plot that really could have been its own movie.
Yeah.
Of just, like, who Batgirl is.
Yeah.
And Batgirl functionally proving Batman wrong. And they kind of did that, and then they undermined it immediately.
Right away.
And it's just, it's not...
Let's just start with the character of Paris Franz. Yes, you heard that right. Number one, the name. Absolutely ridiculous. Like
the name was... I almost stopped at the name. I told you I'd watch it.
I know. I knew that was going to be an irked moment there. But let's just start with that. Like, his character, he's a douche. He's a villain, and he's basically trying to take over the Gotham underworld. But what's interesting here is the way that he lusts after Batgirl, and the way that he just talks about her, and which is fine because someone I don't it's not fine, but okay, I'll accept that they did that. But it's just his interactions with Batgirl were cringeworthy many times.
But I think they were... Like,
I know that they were trying to go for that, but it wasn't cringeworthy in the sense of the story. It was just cringeworthy of, here we're trying to make a very strong Batgirl, but yet she's just, being treated exactly the way that she was and has always been.
Yeah, and it would have been different if they had used him as a commentary, and it feels like they started to, and then chickened out at the last minute.
Exactly. I feel like there was a shift of direction at some point, because I found that the first quarter of the movie, which is the first half of that first act, was really well done in the sense of, okay, so this guy, he's an asshole to Barbara Gordon, or an asshole to Batgirl. Sees her as nothing more than a hot girl, whatever. And Batgirl is going to prove this guy wrong, but not because she's being objectified, but because, well, this guy at the end of the day is a vicious murderer and whatnot. But then I found that they just kind of switched it up, and it turned into, no, I'm taking this guy down because he called me hot.
Yeah. Look, there's a lot. It really feels like they were so close to doing some interesting reinventions, especially in that first half in general, and especially in the first half of the first half.
Yeah.
I watched that in the beginning. I was like, wait, are they going to reboot it and actually, like, change some stuff?
Right.
Which, I think the goal of a Destroy Prevent is a standalone story. Introducing who Barbara Gordon is an important aspect of it.
Yeah.
But are we allowed to go into spoilers for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, her having sex with Batman, her emotional tantrums, her just, like, Batman treating her like shit. And not even, like, Batman often, they explore Batman having his tension about, like, does he have to do it alone or not? Batman just treats like shit. Like, she proves Batman wrong, and he's like, nope. And it's just like, it's not well done.
No, it's not. Not at all. The way that they portrayed Batman in that first half was just weird.
It was weird. And the thing I thought they were doing is I thought they were trying to do it as, like, this is Batman through her eyes. But if that's what they're trying to do, they screwed it up and they didn't do it well enough.
No, exactly. Because there was so much commentary that they could have added around that.
That should have been its own movie. I would love a movie that was just Barbara Gordon. Like, I would love an interpretation of, like, I think you can do an interpretation of her conflicted emotions about why she's gotten into fighting crime. I think you can even talk about her, like, is she crushing on Batman, or is it part of the adrenaline? Is it part of the danger?
Yep.
What's going on here? That's a discussion you can have. But having that plot ham-fistedly stitched to Killing Joke is mess.
It was awkward. It made the entire movie feel awkward. Like that, especially that sex scene. Like
Oh,
it
God.
came, like it just, like at what point does Batman Bruce just say no, we can't do this? No, and I honestly thought he was gonna do that, but no, they did it.
They did. And she takes off her mask, but she doesn't take off his. He doesn't take off
Yeah,
his,
it was just hilarious.
which is a whole thing. Oh, God.
Everyone, the people I went to, all made that comment, and it was just hilarious.
Yeah. And it's the thing of, like, you can make the comment of, like, well, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Like, yes, but you are creating a series of images to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I don't know if this is the best part to get into or not, but it really feels like the team behind this really let people down.
Yes.
And we're going to get more into it later, but the comments we've seen from both Tim and Azuelo, how's that pronounced? Azarello, really show that they did not put as much work into this as they should.
Yeah. They thought no matter what they did, it was going to be a grand slam because it's the Killing Joke.
And
but then you start hyping up the fact that, hey, we're going to fix Batgirl. We're going to add more depth to her. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then you end up doing this. I don't know. I feel like it was one step forward and 1,000 step back. Like, it was really bad, that first part.
Yeah. So, like, I'm looking at the injuries of Tim right now, and he's trying to justify it in that very way of, like, look, it's the original plot totally had Batgirl as a woman in the refrigerator from an era before that term had been coined. And so I added that to get rid of that. It's like, no, Tim, you just made it worse.
You did make it a lot worse. They might as well have. Oh Lord.
And yeah, a lot of people. I want to address this now. I think that we need to address this in that a lot of people are using Killing Joke and the response as a lightning rod for larger issues in fandom and comics and geekery as a whole.
Yeah.
Of like, look, a lot of people are like, no, man, it's not a problem that she was sexually assaulted. That's what it was, and that's what the writer can do. And it gets couched in terms of creative liberty. Mm-hmm. But I think when most of your creative team is saying like, oh God, no, we fucked up, but that should be a sign.
Yeah.
And while researching this episode, I accidentally stumbled across a forum of people discussing the rebooted Killing Joke cover, like the Killing Joke, the New 52, whatchamacallit cover.
Is the Batgirl variant?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know.
And people being like, oh man, I really wanted that thing. And people saying, and this is me quoting, not me saying it, feminazis are at it again. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, guys, come on.
Yep. If the thing is, if even executives are cringed by things, that should kind of, tell you something that, maybe this isn't right. Maybe I shouldn't think this. And these executives aren't coming out and saying these things because, of the feminazis. They're saying this because, well, they're human beings.
Yeah, and the whole, ignoring the rhetorical fact that calling someone a name like that is just, you're just trying to shut down the conversation instead of actually having it.
Exactly.
Ignoring that for a second, there have to be decisions made in art.
Yep.
And I agree, art is supposed to push the envelope.
Yep.
And some of the responses people are getting nowadays of, if you make the wrong step, certain people are having their entire careers destroyed. That's not cool. But also, that is not as big of an issue as a lot of people are saying it is.
Yeah.
A lot of people are able to go. And we saw it with Flyboy? No. Oh,
Airboy.
Huh? Airboy, thank you. So Airboy that, no, we fucked up and we're sorry. And people got on board with oh, cool, you understand. We'll get past it. It's not as big of an issue as people think it is. That these social justice warriors they're shutting down creative integrity. And instead, I find, there's extremists in every group, but a lot of them are very much hey, that wasn't cool. And when the creator comes out and is like, oh, I'm sorry, I was trying to push the envelope. Let's have a discussion and see where you're coming from. And that's huge. I think they tend to be really good. And even then, they're like, oh, yeah, I see what you're going for, and here's how we would here, and they have a discussion like here's how it should be done in the future. Like that's so much more productive.
Yeah, yeah. So I think our entire point here is that first half, while it was created to strengthen the overall character of Batgirl and Barbara Gordon, they did a piss poor job of doing so. What irked me the most, not only was the sex thing, the lusting after Bruce or Batman thing, it was the way that there was a very clear, and I mentioned this at the start, where it was Batgirl was a badass. She did her thing and she knew what she was doing. But as Barbara Gordon, she just seemed like such a damsel in distress the entire time, where every scene that we saw Barbara Gordon, she was complaining about something.
Yeah, like, there was a lot of unfortunate emotional temper tantrums.
Yeah, I don't even know how to put it in words, but it was just so bad. It was just so bad. And what were you trying to accomplish here? Are you saying that Barbara Gordon isn't a strong woman, but Batgirl is? And that's sort of, I don't think that, but I can see some people coming to that conclusion.
And if you want to have that discussion, and they have that discussion with Batman all the time, and other superheroes, like what's the difference between the person behind the mask and the superhero? That can't be done as a footnote.
No, exactly.
Or as a prologue. That has to be its entire plot.
Yeah, exactly. It was just so weird. It was just so awkward on so many levels. That entire first half with the portrayal of Batgirl and Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. And
do you want to transition into the final half?
And I was going to say, and then.
And do the comparisons, and then let's. I think we should then loop around to the major themes.
Yeah. So then, in sort of their transition, is the very, very infamous shooting of Barbara Gordon, when Joker gets Jim Gordon. Yep. Yeah, it's exactly the way that it was portrayed in the book. It happens.
It is not the exact same as in the book.
Almost. Well, they show a little more. They go a little more in detail.
Which is important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you want to explain what they added?
So they go a little bit. So in the comic, the plot is Joker shoots her and then undresses her and takes naked photos of her. Mm-hmm. And the comic is a lot more vague about what that implies. Mm-hmm. And again, Alan Moore and others have said this was not a good call. And you know what? You can even write it off as Joker is trying to be a bad person. Mm-hmm. And again, late 1980s, bit of a different thing. A little bit of problem there already. Mm-hmm. In the movie, they go a step further. You see Joker undressing her more, yeah. And in Batman trying to track down the Joker, you're treated to a scene where he talks with a group of prostitutes who say that the Joker always comes to them.
Yeah.
But this time he's found a new girl.
Yeah.
And this super heavily implies what has happened. Mm-hmm. And that was a problem in the original. And especially with that beginning, like so much of who Batgirl / Barbara Gordon is becomes defined through sex.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Then when challenged on it, Tim says, I don't think that actually. I did not think of it as supporting that. If I had, I probably would have changed the line. I never ever thought that he actually raped her. Even in my first read of the comic, I never thought that. It just seemed like he shot her and then took her clothes off and took pictures of her to freak out her dad.
Right.
I never thought it was more than anything than that.
What's interesting about that quote, and I read that also, was, and I came prepared for this, what's interesting about that is then why did you add scenes that implied so much more?
So much more.
So much
and,
more.
Like, if you don't interpret that and you don't see that as a possibility, you shouldn't be writing this comic.
Uh-huh.
And it gets worse when Azzarello, when challenged about the portrayal by Conrad from Bleeding Cool, in Bleeding Cool possibly doing their one good one good deed of the year, calls him out for the portrayal, and Azzarello calls him a pussy.
Yep.
Like, that is a big problem. And these two creatives behind the project, that's a problem.
Yep. It is. Major problem. Major problem. Yeah. For when Bruce Timm said, and I'm just trying to be careful about how I word this. This is why there's some dead air. When Bruce Timm said that he wanted to take this story and sort of fix up a lot of the issues that a lot of people had with it, I find it amazing that they were able to somehow add more issues to it. So, like, more things that will get people riled up.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because I feel like so much of it, like, I feel like it's a major problem when it feels like so much of it, and this is not for certain, but I feel like if we were to find out, oh yeah, tons of this was discussed behind the scenes by executives being like, oh, this will get us tons of discussion about it to sell comics, I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ugh. I have real problems with it, especially because of how much the fandom and certain members of the fandom have come out to be like, it's just a comic, guys. Like, chill out. I can't.
Yes, it's just a comic, but, these people have obviously written this for our consumption with undertones and bigger, like...
I think the big thing is creative things have an impact
regardless
on reality.
Yeah.
Boris, can you mark the time for a second?
Yep.
Like the time we are into the recording?
Yep.
I'm going to get real, and I reserve the right to cut this.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yep.
All right. I've been sexually assaulted to the point of near rape.
Mm-hmm.
In that, like, I have been at a house party where I went and I lied down because I was admittedly way too drunk. And I woke up, and there's a woman literally riding me.
Wow.
And I was able to very quickly be like, she made some comment where she was trying to be whatever. Mm-hmm. And I said, you taste like cigarettes and vomit. Get the fuck off of me.
Yeah.
And I've been able to get past that. And I was not, for a variety of reasons. Like, I was not particularly scarred by that, but still very messed up.
Of course.
And the people who then come out here and defend that, like, this is important.
Mm-hmm. Look, the way that I see it, and I know we're stumbling a lot on our words, and it's just because I think we're both very invested in this in terms of our own experiences, and that's exactly it. It's our own experiences. So maybe to you, it's just a comic book, but people have gone through shit. They read this stuff, and it triggers something to them. Sometimes a comic book can mean more to people. Comic books can bring happiness, joy, but it can also bring and remind us of those dark moments. And I think that's what a lot of these pacifists don't understand, is that this is bigger because, as much as comic books are, or whatever, art, whatever, what have you, is an escape, things can still be triggered.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point of it. And from my point of view, I don't think it's a matter of we can't have rape or sexual assault in creative things and that everything should be sanitized. It depends on the treatment. Mm-hmm. And so much of this is it's not about how the sexual assault or the rape affects that girl. Mm-hmm. And even if you say that, even if you agree with Tim that no, there was no rape, it was just undressing her and taking naked pictures of her with that weird other scene that heavily implies it's rape. You still have that's still sexual assault.
Yep.
And it's never about how it affects Barbara.
Yep.
It is only about how it affects her father and how it affects Bruce.
But that's right there. You said it right there. That's exactly it. That if they wanted to make this story better, this scene could have happened right at the start, and then a lot of the movie could have been Barbara dealing with this and seeing emotionally how she's dealing with this. And I think that if they had made her deal with this and struggle with this, but come out stronger at the end, I think that message would have been a lot better than the, oh, she got shot and basically we're going to have her in two more scenes. One scene where she's comatose and then one scene at the very end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that
I'm with you.
they could have really handled this completely differently, and I think this conversation would have been absolutely different if they had done that, because we would have said, she went through this shit, but damn, she's strong. Damn, she went into a dark moment, but she was able to come out stronger. Like, that conversation, that should be the conversation we're having.
That's
Not-
one of them.
not this
And you know how to do
conversation.
it is if you want, like, oh, how do you do that? Here's a great way that I came up with just now, a better way to do it. Have it start with Joker still shoots her. Joker does all this stuff. Have him not kidnap Jim yet. Have him attack her when she's on her own or something like that. Have so much of the movie be about her recovering, and then have Joker kidnap Jim and reveal that it was him. And now's Jim's chance. Having seen the suffering, here's Jim's chance to do something. And then you can make the entire thing about Jim being an appropriate ally.
Yep. Yep.
And that's a better story.
Yeah.
And you can still do Batman's big question of whether or not he kills Joker at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the great parts of the story.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a shame that this scene went the way it did. And I actually forgot about that other scene that we spoke about until we brought it up again.
Yeah. Here's a warning for people. Don't go into the comments section on anything about this.
Yeah.
There are, and it's really hard to remember this, but there's a group of, frankly, mostly white dudes who are bashing on reviewers and bashing on anyone who like is at all in favor of, like, hey, maybe we should have not straight white power, like straight white muscle bound men. It's yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've exhausted commentary on the shooting and the
Yeah,
images portrayed.
I feel like we've exhausted commentary for us. There's been a lot of people who've done a much better job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can both agree by saying that if they wanted to improve the character of Batgirl Barbara Gordon, they really could have done it. Still doing what they did, but adding scenes with her struggle and her recovery. Not physically, but mentally. And I think that story would have been a much better story.
Yeah, it could have been.
All right, so then
Yeah.
I would say, up until the very end of the movie, the rest follows the graphic novel almost to a T.
For good and ill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Is there anything in particular that you want to bring up?
There are some parts that don't age well, I think.
Yes.
I think that Joker specifically using the shutdown carnival and the various people who are, some midgets, a bearded woman kind of thing, like that does not age well.
No.
And I feel like the very strict adherence to the original art for that really was like a poor choice.
Yeah, they could have changed that. It's funny that they didn't change that because they could have easily used, mental ward patients.
It could have been so much.
It could have been a lot. It could have been a lot of different things. But I agree with you there. But for me, the fact that it was almost to a T, retelling of that story, for me it was really cool because, again, that Batman story is such an important one for me. So just seeing that stuff on the big screen was cool as a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of problems with it. And part of it is because I've read so much about the commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very unimpressed with Tim.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally understand. I totally see where you're coming from. I really do.
And part of it is because, like, so much of it, he's like, yeah, that's what we have to do. We have to do this. We have to make this controversial. It's like, no, just make it better. Because it really feels like it really feels like he tried to make it controversial and, like, it was going to get people talking about rather than making it good.
Right. I feel like in his mind he wanted the discussion to be had, but the discussion is actually there is a discussion being had, and it's why did you do that, not as opposed to what he was thinking of, females in comics and females in general, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, shit. I just found a great line from his interview.
Okay.
This is from his interview with Vulture, where they talk about the two, like you said, the two sections of the thematic thing. And he says, this is from later in his response, quote, "In terms of thematics, boy, I don't know." And just like, it just makes me think of that scene from West Wing where, by the way, boy, I don't know is when I decided to kick your ass. Like, just,
yeah. You're really angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it.
It's, yes, I know a number of survivors, and this feels like everything is, like, this feels like a lot of the examples of what's wrong with comics.
Yep.
And it's too bad, because I feel like you could have done a really solid adaptation and you could have kept the major plot points and changed the portrayal and how it was done.
Yep.
And you could have had a much better story for it.
I agree.
But yeah, you go through it. You have the torture of Gordon, which for some reason, tell me if you agree with this or not, but in the comic seemed a lot more brutal, and in the movie seemed very half-assed.
Funny that you say that, and this is the reason why I made a point of saying that this was rated R, and that's because of that very reason. I found that in the comic book, Gordon was treated a lot worse. And this adds to your point, or both of our points about Barbara Gordon, and that's, so you have Barbara Gordon who went through a lot more shit in this movie.
Yes.
They've added a lot more shit. But then you kind of don't have Gordon go through everything he's gone through. And in fact, you not only leave things out, but what you leave in is kind of, like, babied. Like, it's, especially when you have that R rating and you are allowed to do whatever you want.
Well, and there's like, and they come out of it with that scene at the end where it's about Gordon still says, bring him in by the book, to show that Gordon has not been altered. Yeah. Which, again, only worry about Gordon.
Yep.
But in the movie especially, like, they make it such a big thing that Gordon, like, from seeing his daughter sexually assaulted, it's such a big deal that Gordon has not decided to kill Joker. And that says very little about humanity, in that, like, by that logic, I should want to kill a lot of people and should have no respect for law and order, because I know a number of people who've been sexually assaulted. And I 100%, if you were to tell me, like, hey, Tyler, you could 100% get away with killing this person, everyone would be okay with it, and you would never go to jail, I'd be like, oh, I want to, but I'm not going to, because, like, law and order is important. And I agree our legal system has problems, but come on!
I agree.
All right.
You're making me change my opinion about this movie. I hate you.
I'm sorry.
No, but this is why I wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I went in wanting to like it.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone did.
Yeah, I think the comic, honestly, if you just want to look at, like, the events, I think the comic does and accepting the comic has problems with it. I feel like the comic is more even-handed and a better presentation than the movie.
Yeah, I think so overall. I think that this is the first time that they got the movie wrong overall.
Yeah, I feel like if you were to look at all of DC's movies and were to include everything they've done, this is the worst.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And it's funny because this is the one that everyone's been waiting for. The one that, it's rated R. We can get to see something different. Hey, they're gonna fix Batgirl's role. Oh, you did that. It's just.
Yeah. Some people have said that they did fix Batgirl's role, and this makes it better, and it just, that makes me upset.
Yeah, if you take Batgirl, but then you look at the entire bigger picture, it's like, what did you actually do? You made this so much worse. You made her character so much more weak.
Yeah. The number of people who have said there's no rape in Killing Joke it boggles my mind.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind.
Yeah. But again, a lot of people, ignorance is bliss for them.
I mean, I think
and Bruce Timm, to a certain extent, even his quote, ignorance is bliss for him. But it's funny because, again, it just baffles me because here you are, the executive producer, where you can fix these things, and, he could have said, no, this absolutely did not happen. But you not only have it happen, but you imply so much more and show so much more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
It could have been done so much better, especially that R rating. It felt like, and for everything we've heard, it sounds like
it was a marketing ploy. It was a market. They had it rated R, so that they can say, "Oh, this Batman's edgy. This Batman's rated R." There was no reason for that R rating. No reason.
Yeah.
How many times did they swear? And that's actually something I wanted to do before we recorded. I wanted to count how many times they used fuck. Because you're only allowed to use fuck a certain amount of times before it has to be rated R.
I think you're only allowed to use fuck once,
right?
I think it's once before it's rated R. And it's not just fuck. You get one of whatever the MCAA says is their worst swears.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. It was, yeah.
Yeah. No, for something that everyone was looking for, it's something that, it's so iconic, something that had issues when it was originally released, and then you somehow make it worse. How is that possible?
Yeah. I gotta say, Azzarello's behavior, especially after this, is terrible, and so much of my view on this, and I think that for a project like this, it has to be, so much is shaped by what's happened in their response, and it's not been good.
See, and I've ignored a lot of that just because I've learned to ignore a lot of responses. But now that you're telling me that, I'm siding with you on this. Brian Azzarello, though, is known. If I recall, this isn't the first time he's acted like this after something.
But then at some point, it becomes beholden on everyone. That why is this man still making? Right? And here's the thing. At the end of the day, it comes down to the audience. And there are a variety of moral positions that I'm going to take, and I'm going to argue until my face is blue. But then it comes down to what people are going to buy or are not going to buy.
Yeah.
And it's rough right now because I feel like it's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's an arms race between marketing and readers or consumers. And the back and forth is the marketing is definitely in the lead right now.
Yeah.
If they can make us buy something like this, and then we all get mad at it and we keep buying it, and yeah.
For me, this is I see your point, but I'm the type of person of, okay, this was shit, or not. It wasn't shit, but I'm left upset with certain things, but I'm not gonna boycott things because of it. Does that make me a worse person?
That's a big question, right?
But but you see where I'm going with this, right?
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And like, here's the thing: like, I don't think DC's in the. Like, I don't think I think DC is in the wrong a little bit for this, but not like. But I still want to support Midnighter and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be. I think I'm at the level now where I'm going to boycott some of the specific creators.
Brian Azzarello.
Yep.
Anything Bruce Timm does now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I can
Right?
see that,
Like,
and that you see that I understand, that I respect. Yeah, yep.
And you know what? If DC had done something like, if we had like, hypothetical now, if we had a situation where Rebirth was coming out and Midnighter was canceled and Orlando was sacked,
You would have stopped DC.
well, it would have. I was going to go on a list, but like, if they've gotten rid of like a bunch of the people who were like pushing the envelope and doing cool things, and they went back really hardcore to like, no, we're just going back to the 1980s. I'd have been done. I'd have been like, I don't understand, man. I just don't.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
And I think that, you know what, they did Rebirth, and I was skeptical, and I just like some of these properties, but I'm coming around to other ones.
The problem, though, I find that in comic books, it's harder to say, oh, I'm going to boycott this, because there's just so many things, you know. There's just so many things, and not everyone communicates, not everyone is connected, but I don't know. I feel like now I'm just trying to make excuses.
Well, right, I think that's one of the big problems right now, right, is there's not really a good way for us to voice our reaction that isn't buying or not buying.
Yep.
Which is a subpar situation. And especially right now, like, I feel like once upon a time, if you had a lot of audience people pissed off, big corporations would often change what they were doing.
Yeah.
But I think, like, right now especially, they've figured out that, like, wait a minute, if we do this, people get pissed off, but they still buy it, who gives a shit?
Yeah. So we're the idiots because we keep consuming. In the eyes of these conglomerates.
Yeah. PR people, right?
Fucking PR people.
This should be called the Very Upset episode.
I know. Like, man. You know, I'm telling you, it's the summer heat that's gotten to us also. Here's a question for you. Now I'm trying to lighten the mood a little bit. Well, not really. If Suicide Squad wasn't released the same week as this movie, do you think that this movie would have gotten more mainstream attention?
100%.
Do you think?
100%.
Do you think that DC did this on purpose? Now this is just tinfoil hatting this. Because they knew... I
feel like that's getting a little bit too tinfoil hatting.
Yep, I agree. But I just wanted to say that because I know that I've seen one commentary, a headline, because again, I try to avoid reading a lot of this stuff, that said that DC knew what reaction this movie was going to get. So on purpose, it was released the same week as Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's...
You can see, though, how someone can reach that conclusion.
I can see how someone can reach that.
And that's the thing about conspiracy theories in general, is the reason why they're around is because they make enough sense, sometimes, most of the time.
Yeah, it depends on the conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Sometimes. It makes enough sense.
Lizard people won.
Yeah. But a lot of conspiracy theories make enough sense that that's why they're still around. You know? Anyways, so I don't think that it was done on purpose. I don't think DC knew what type of reaction they were going to get, because just from hearing your quotes, Bruce Timm and Brian Azzarello are kind of taken back by some of the backlash. Like,
I don't even understand
it seems
that
surprising
one.
to them. It seems surprising.
I don't understand that one. Like, I don't understand how you could like Bruce Timm being like, I don't know how you could see that was a rape. I don't. Like, you should not be writing in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're not aware of it's one of the first things they teach you as a writer: write what you know, and that doesn't mean only write about men or only write about women or whatever. It means, like, know what the fuck you're talking about.
Research if you don't know it. You know?
Yeah. Like, if you're like, nah, how people got that, like, you probably should have fucking got there in advance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's some super small minority who got there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not one person's opinion. These interviewers are asking based on a lot of feedback they've been getting, and like, believe it or not, like, we don't necessarily announce that we're going to interview someone, but if I see rumblings in the internet about someone that we're going to interview, that we're going to talk to, something that probably should be brought up, guess what? We're going to bring it up. So, yeah. It's not one person's reaction. It's not like a one-on-one and the entire world is shut out. Like, as an interviewer, you want to bring up things that people are going to care about.
Yeah, and if and here's the thing, if Bruce, Timm, and Azzarello had a different approach to, like, not approach, like, had responded differently, like, if they had better answers, I'm not going to come up with, like, answers they could potentially do. I'm the first to admit that, like, look, it's possible that they could have done the closest thing to a justification. I'd be like, all right, yeah, all right. If you had said, like, look, here's what we are trying to do, and I see where you're coming from, and I think I fucked up, I'd be the first who'd be there, like, all right, like, they fucked up. Let's forgive them.
Yep.
Like, let's move on. Let's, like, they fucked up here. Let's see what they do next. Let's try to get them to make it better.
Yep. Yep, I agree. Just so much. There's just so much to talk about. And I know we're jumping a lot. And again, it's because we just have a discussion. And this is how discussions go. But yeah, so has there been any, from what you've seen on the internet, has there been any response from anyone other than Bruce Timm in terms of execs?
I saw Azzarello's really bad response.
Right. Oh, apart from those two, like, anyone, basically I'm trying to say, has the Warner Brothers PR machine been awoken?
I feel like the Warner Brothers PR machine has trotted out Azzarello and Bruce Timm as sacrificial sheep.
Yep, that's what I'm seeing. Just by looking
it was
at
just
the headline.
them.
Yep.
They gave them carte blanche,
Yep.
and they fucked it up.
Yep.
Like, that's really what it feels like.
I also think that the Warner Brothers PR machine is a little busy right now.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad.
I feel like Warner Brothers is very happy to. I think Warner Brothers is very happy to hope this falls by the wayside, and just let's talk about the shit show that is Suicide Squad, which we've talked about. I feel like Suicide Squad is. I feel like I figured it out. I figured out part of my problem with this. A lot of readers and a lot of people are.
Hey, you're breaking up a little. Hold on. You're breaking up. You're back in the red. Stupid Skype. I lost you.
Yeah. I'm ready to jump back into it. I got a really good point, I think.
Yeah, go now.
I feel like a big part of it is a lot of people in the fan base who are looking at it and they see
You're
and then they go, well, there we go.
Hold on. Cut.
People who are in...
You can't hear me, can you?
In the journalism industry, or part of the...
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I feel like this is or isn't worth your money. And then when they have the hyperbole they do with Suicide Squad, it undermines their own reviews about Killing Joke. And we're still there?
Yeah.
Okay, I heard a noise and I was like, oh no! I feel like, I don't know how more people aren't pissed off at Azzarello calling out a journalist with, want to say that again, pussy? Like, how is that not a big deal?
Like, I know.
What world have we fallen into? What bizarre world are we into that someone attacking a journalist for asking a question? is not a big deal.
But that's the holier-than-thou attitude that a lot of people in the
And then,
industry
Azrael
have.
goes out there and says that.
Oh my God! I'm going to kill the internet. Can you hear me? You can't hear me. I hate you. I hate you, internet. Yeah, hello.
Motherfucker.
I know, right?
Yeah. Did we get all of what I said before?
I got it. Hold on. Oh my God. Yeah. I kept recording this time.
Okay, awesome.
I have to actually edit this episode.
Ugh!
Before that, I'm gonna actually put in an MP3. I'm gonna send it to you, and just because we've touched on a few things, not that I care about what people are gonna say, but I just want to run it by.
This is a more contentious issue. Let's get everyone signing off.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
I get you.
This
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it's our show. Like, it's our comics I read is ours. At this point, I just created it. That's the way that I see it. Yeah. Okay, so you start back to your point about WB. We're just gonna.
Oh, way back there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
I feel like Warner Brothers is very content to just let the fiasco over Suicide Squad rule the media cycle and just shove this off to the edge, and they're just going to sacrifice Azzarello and Tim as sheep and just nope, they messed it up, it's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for right or for wrong, it's not getting as much play.
Yep.
And I don't know what world we live in where Azzarello, like everything else about this thing, how is Azzarello sounding like he's trying to pick a fight with a journalist, not a bigger story?
Yeah.
How is him not saying, and I'm quoting, want to say that again, pussy, not a bigger deal?
Right.
It's
a holier-than-thou attitude that a lot of creators are starting to have. And I understand it's their work, it's their whatever, it's their passion, it's their voice. So a lot of these creators, I think, again, not making excuses, just saying, they don't take well to any criticism because of how attached they are to whatever project.
Yeah.
That's it happens, but there is that. I'm not excusing what he's done, and I'm understanding why.
Like, as someone else who puts his work out there as a creative,
mm-hmm.
That's part of your job, though. Part of your job is critics are going to come and try to shun your work.
So what I have to cut that again too. Fuck.
The cursed episode.
Yeah, no. Well,
Warner Brothers is out to get us.
I'm hearing these weird noises right now in my apartment. I think it's coming from upstairs. I hope it's coming from upstairs. That's why I suddenly just stopped. Okay, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I'm not trying to make an excuse for Brian Azzarello.
Yeah.
Or for anyone who acts like that. What I'm trying to get at is, what am I trying to get at? Oh my God. This episode. I'm just laughing at this point. I'm just laughing.
I mean, I think
this is our Suicide Squad right here.
This is our Suicide Squad. It's got some problems, but it's trying its best.
Oh Lord, we're horrible. Okay, I'm not trying to make any excuses for Azzarello, and he's attached to this project, but there is a way that you have to carry yourself in interviews. You have to be able to take criticism because, like we always say, not everything is for everyone.
Well, yeah.
And then you, as a creator who releases things to the public, know this.
Well, yeah, and for that kind of thing, or even when you feel like your back's against the wall and someone's calling you out, just say like, look, man, I see where you're coming from on that. I get where you're coming from. I don't agree. But that's the way it's going to happen.
Yep.
And it's a shitty answer, but it's better than trying to pick a fight.
Yep. For example, I've opened up our
Oh no.
comics at Comics I Read
Oh no.
email. And there's this email, and I'm not going to read it, all of it, but to summarize it, it is basically saying that we know nothing about the comic industry. We talk bullshit. And I quote, I listen to you guys just so I can laugh.
Okay.
Thank you for giving us hits, number one. That is actually the funniest thing I've ever heard. Because by you hating us, you're still listening to us, which increases our viewership.
Yeah.
But yeah, so take that for example. Things like that. It's never good hearing negative feedback about your work, but you just have to know how to handle
feedback,
it.
right?
No.
Like, there's a difference between feedback and like a legitimate criticism, and just like we know nothing about the comic industry. Like, all right, but we're literally talking to people in the comics industry. Like, we're talking to creators. We're getting numbers. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not a good criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like, hey guys, I feel like you don't delve deep enough into the diamond numbers, and you should be looking at year-over-year statistical analyses
mm-hmm.
about the growth or changing rates. Like, that's a legitimate concern. And every time we look at the diamond numbers,
mm-hmm.
I'm conscious that like, oh my god, we're doing such a basic.
No, we are.
But that's all we. That's because we don't want to go too deep into it,
no.
And we're talking about getting people on board who can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But
yep,
yeah.
Long story short, short story long. I think that Brian Azzarello could have handled that completely different, and goes back to our point about the Warner Brothers PR, just kind of letting these guys hang.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's their strategy for good or for ill.
But that's what these companies do. They find their scapegoats.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah. Do you have anything else to add?
I had commentary that I think got cut off, and now I've lost it.
This episode.
The Skypes.
So everyone is probably listening to the edited version of this episode. We've had tons of Skype issues. Oh my god. So we do apologize if there at times didn't make sense what we were talking about, but we've tried our best to continue on and edit.
We have no idea. During the recording, we don't have a lot of idea how much Skype has just garbled beyond use.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which makes, But, Skype. So, yeah. Any final thoughts? Because I think now we're just not making things up, but now we're just delving into nothingness.
You know what? Yes. I have one final thought. And this is I'm going to try to link the relatively micro level of diversity and inclusivity in comics, which I know a lot of people really dislike, apparently. Jesus. Whereas it's like part of the reason that stuff like Killing Joke happened, I think that looking at Tor.com's reporting on it, there were no women involved in the executive production level of this creation. And to link the macro to the micro level and to talk about diversity and inclusivity in comics, which for some reason are just an issue that gets people pissed off. How dare we have more other people in comics?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's telling, right? Like men don't tend to have to worry about being sexually assaulted. And even when they do, it's often not the same emotional impact because their position in society is inherently different. And not to say that it's never an emotional impact, because it totally is. It's just, often there are trends that show it differently.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, I think it's a problem when we see that, like, oh yeah, your executive team involves Tim and Azzarello, and their complete lack of getting the issues people are coming at them with is just telling, and that's why we need more people in comics. And I'm going to get a lot of hate mail from it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
You know what? I agree with you. So, bring it on.
I don't understand how we live in this world where that gets hate mail of like, maybe we should have more people who aren't straight white men in comics. Like, how dare you burn them?
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna make a lot of friends this week.
To quote Churchill, something about judging yourself by the enemies.
Yep, exactly. Hey, if
Judge
you
a man by the quality of his enemies, or some Churchillian crap like that.
Yep.
You have enemies. Good. That means you stood up for something in your life.
Exactly.
That's the one.
Yep. All right. So we've talked a lot about The Killing Joke, both graphic novel and movie. I think our listeners know where we stand on the movie. So, would you recommend people to watch it?
No. Like, honestly, I can't. Which is too bad, but here we are.
Yep, I agree. I agree with your opinion. I'm going to take a slightly different opinion and say that if The Killing Joke is a story that you hold near and dear, I think you're going to at least enjoy the second half of the movie. That's pretty much all I can say.
All right.
So yeah, I think that I kind of like this this forum that we're in, and I wish that we had more people, but we kind of put this together, and through a bunch of technical difficulties, I hope that it all made sense to our listeners. And again, I know that we jump back and forth a lot, but it's the discussion that we're having, and it is what it is. So let's that's that.
True that. For next time a thing like this inevitably happens, let's try to get more people on board. We'll have a panel.
Yeah, I did. Honestly, I didn't even think about it. I didn't. As funny as this sounds, I knew what we were going to talk about, but I didn't think of it. Funny enough, but I like this back and forth. It was. I think it was good, and the Killing Joke is the Killing Joke, and maybe it's lived up to everything that we were expecting, because we're number one, we're talking about it, not positively, but we're talking about it. But the thing is that it's as controversial in 2016 as a movie than it was in 1988 as a graphic novel.
Yeah.
So that's that. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed the episode. Please leave us your feedback, and you can leave us feedback at podcasts@comicsiread.com. That's COMIXIread.com. You can also send us what you think on Twitter. We have our main Comics I Read account at Comics I Read. We also have personal accounts. You can find Tyler at
Tyler_ROI.
And you can find me at BR_AGUILAR. And then that's that. So again, we hope that you enjoyed listening to our discussion. Let us know what you think. If you have opinions, let us know what they are. And at the end of the day, The Killing Joke, like I said, is as controversial in 2016 as it was in 1988. And that's just the way it is. So good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
And there you have it. That was the episode. I hope that you had fun listening to it. It was interesting to revisit that conversation. And the reason why I specifically chose this episode is because Tyler said, man, we should revisit The Killing Joke. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to release that episode, and I think Tyler and I are going to have a subsequent conversation about this, a follow-up 4 years after the fact, because I think we both feel a little stronger about this movie. So you're going to have to stay tuned to see what we have to say. But I hope you enjoyed it. You can always get a hold of us at Its Canon Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. You can find us anywhere you find podcasts, Apple, TuneIn, Spotify, Amazon, what have you. Whatever the app, you can find us. And if you can't find us, let us know and we'll get there. again, I just want to thank everyone. As always, I hope you are having a safe time off, time with family if possible. And, just wishing all of our listeners the very best. So thank you to everyone, and I hope that everyone has a very, very safe week. And if we don't chat before then, Happy New Year. I wish nothing but the best for 2021. And I know that just because the calendar changes year doesn't mean that everything is going to magically get better. But let's send some positive energy out there, and hopefully things can get better as we all work together. On behalf of Tyler, on behalf of Phil, I want to say thank you and good night.